Hello guys, and you're welcome to our YouTube channel. My name is Oluchi Joy.
And I'm Anili Chidera.
Exactly. And today we are going to be speaking about how to get
an apartment
in the UK. Yeah. We actually decided to do this video because we just realized that a lot of people don't have like the right information that they need to be able to get an apartment, and so to be able to save you that problem, especially if you are a couple, or um, especially if you're a couple, or maybe you're a couple with kids, this information is going to be very important for you.
Yeah,
okay?
trust us.
Exactly.
Trust us. I mean, moving to the UK is such a big deal, or moving to anywhere, relocation is such a big deal, and you just want to be up and about, and you want to know what you're totally up against, and you want to plan accordingly. I think these few tips that are coming from us will totally help you prepare yourself as you get on the journey.
Yes. And so the first thing I'm going to start with is to let you know that especially if you're coming from Nigeria or Africa, our system over there is nothing like this system.
Totally different.
Totally different. So you have to bear that in mind. Secondly, it is always very important for you to have a plan. Please do not leave your country to come to a new place. Exactly.
I think you should write that point down, because I think everything, like I said, is relocation is a very big deal, in case you think it's not. So you need a plan. You actually need a plan that works, because you can also have a plan that is bullshit. So you
exactly.
need the right plan.
Yeah, so don't, when you come around and you're calling that your friend, or maybe even your blood brother and your sister, and they're not picking, it is not their fault, because for you to actually stay in their place, your presence alone is going to cost them a lot of money. And I'm talking from like food to water to lights to like all those things, because it's extra people, right? Extra water.
You're just a cost center to every other person, as
exactly.
long as you're not bringing in some money. I mean, don't get us wrong, family and friends can always help you, but I don't think this is a long-term plan. I think it would be super unfair to even consider this a medium-term plan. If anything, it should be a short-term plan, just a stopgap, so that you can prepare and get on with your own business. It is important that you get your shit covered.
So we're just going to get right into it.
Great.
Now, if you are coming from, like, say, Nigeria, for example, because I'm Nigerian, we are Nigerians, right? You're coming to the UK. First of all, coming as a single person, when it comes to apartments, yes, it can actually be easier for you to get a space like this. But it is not always the case for couples, because most landlords, for some funny reason, don't want couples, or don't want couples with kids. So there is always a way around it, right? Now, the first thing you need to know is, when you're looking for an apartment, there are several websites that you can look at, right? First of all, there's Open Rent. The most popular here is zoopla.co.uk, I think, right? It's just going to be on the screen, the correct one. So you can look on these platforms, and begin to look for apartments around your area, the area that you're looking to go to. Cool. Right? So typically you're going to find houses ranging from studios to one-room apartments to 2 bedrooms, whichever one you decide. Personally, I'll say, especially if you're coming newly and if you're not conversant with the system, it's better to start small. If you're single, maybe a studio will be fine, and maybe if you're a couple, maybe a 1-bed will be fine. Cool. Right? And if you're a couple still with kids, maybe a 1-bed, it can still be fine. Maybe you can just manage a sitting room and then the kids stay in the bedroom or something, Or, the standard is actually to go a 2-bed, especially if you have kids.
Yeah.
Really, that's
the kids,
standard.
I mean, I think that studio would not work totally when you have a kid, because it is against the HSE and safety policy that they have in the UK. But what I would recommend for married couples, even though you guys have done your visa and you plan to come together, I would totally recommend for one of the spouses to go first. Do not book your air tickets together. You can book it a month apart, so that one person can come and actually it's easier for the person to actually stay with a friend for a couple of
Exactly.
days. It's easier for the person to go around and look for the right apartment and actually, do the check-ins and actually what do they call it again?
All those fees. Don't worry, we'll talk about
Yeah,
that.
I mean, when you're invited to come and check a house,
Viewings.
to do the viewings with the agency, it's just easier and more flexible for the person with the strongest uh, endurance, or the person who actually has the strongest
Has
mind.
street cred.
Yes, in this case, she was the one.
Street
You
cred.
can see I'm a body, you know.
Street
They
cred.
won't understand. She had to confess, made it easier. So, guys, we totally recommend that.
Yes, and for us it was even like months apart. It wasn't just 1 month.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks, babe. Having said that, now that you now know about the platforms where you can actually get, these platforms, just like he has said, the next thing for you is to apply, book for your viewings, and I always recommend, please call them. Don't just apply and feel like, oh, they've gotten my application, blah, blah, blah. No, follow up with them, because hey, you're the one who needs a house, right? So you need to always call them, follow up with them. Now they're going to give you a date, or maybe ask you to choose a date for the viewing, which you can go for. Please, no African time. If you waste time, they'll leave you there and go. So
Really?
you better try to be there on time. If your
Yeah.
viewing is by 2 p.m., make sure that you're there at least. I always recommend 5 to 10 minutes before the time. Make sure you are there. It's better you are the one staying there waiting,
Yes,
than they stay there and wait for you.
It's not right.
They will just leave you and go, right? So if you have that behavior of Nigerian time thing, begin to wash it off from your body. Now, once the viewing is done, and let's say you like the apartment, the next thing they will do, and I'm speaking from our experience with the agent that we worked with, or the agency, right? Typically, they work in agencies here, so it's not like our back home where one person they do agent work. No, here an agency. So typically the agency will now send you like a registration form where you now have to register, put in information. They want to know who you are, like have a phone number, your email, where you have lived before. They want to know how many kids you have, if you're single, how many people you plan to stay in the house, do you have pets. They want to know all these things, right? Now, sometimes they get to waste some time. They'll get to waste time before maybe they give you a response, and that's typically because you may not be the only one coming for the house. There may be other people, right? So that means the landlord now has to decide to who he is gonna give the form to.
Trust me, it's not tumbang. It's actually based on a lot of data, and you don't want to be on the wrong side of the data.
No, follow now.
Absolutely, you follow when the
follow.
choice is taught. And just an advice, please don't call them with your Nigerian number. And that's why it's important for one spouse to be in the UK while the house search is going on, because you actually want to put in number that they can reach and trust. You don't want to start raising any red flag issues early enough. I think that wouldn't do you any good.
Exactly. Now, let's say they now call you to say, yeah, the landlord wants you to proceed with your application. Once they just tell you that, the next thing, the first thing that you're gonna pay, is I think it's some, I don't know what exactly, I can't remember the exact name, but it's more like a check
Holding
fee. Exactly. Now, God bless you, babe. Now, that holding fee, what it is for, and holding fee is usually 1 week's rent, So what it is for is to take the property off the market,
the listing
the listing site, so that they can do a check on you pretty much, Now, when that check comes as positive, like, okay, this person is clean, clear, they ain't got no issues. And typically, what is part of the thing they'll ask you for is like references. So they're going to ask you for like your references. And I always advise maybe people who like are working or have a home of their own and all of that. Now, that's the hard part, because especially if people don't know you, it will be hard for them to serve as your reference, because at the end of the day, the essence of that reference is if you default or one thing, they can hold your guarantor, whoever your references are, they will hold them, so you yourself, you need to be a trustworthy person, somebody who can own up to their shit and keep their shit together. Sorry for my shit talk.
Sorry for her dog. You know.
Oh my
So
days.
I mean, definitely you need to reference. I think at that point when decision has been streamlined and you're the preferred candidate and you've made payments, the check-in even gets even more serious. There's something called some of the fees that you're supposed to pay. After the holding fee, you're supposed to pay your rent, and you're also supposed to pay what we call the what's deposit fee.
Yeah. So
And
okay.
yeah, so
Go ahead.
the deposit fee, you're supposed to pay that as well. And there's also something called an employment check, which they do to guarantee that you actually are employed and you can afford the apartment. I think this is a tricky part. Yeah.
Yeah. So now, after the holding fee, right? Because part of what they also need to check is your employment. So, for example, if you're a couple, in our case, of course, I was the student. He was the one who was working, right? Now, if you don't have employment history in the UK, they're definitely going to make you pay your 6 months rent up front. Some agencies do like 3 months, some agencies do 6 months. So depending on the agency you get to work with, right? So you're made to pay your 6 months rent up front. Please bear that in mind. And that's part of the planning that we're talking about, because so many people are not aware that these are the things they are going to face. And it's not even just as a couple. If you're also a single person, they are going to require that of you, right? So typically they are going to ask you for your holding fee, and once that comes back positive, the next thing they're going to ask you for is to pay a deposit fee. The fee comes together, the 6 months rent upfront and the deposit fee, they come together. Now your deposit fee is about 5 weeks rent. 5 weeks rent, that should total, I mean, depending on how much your rent is, just simply divided by 30 days, so it just gives you how much rent you get to pay per day. It's as simple as that, really. So and sometimes even in the listing, even if they put the rent per month, they still put how much it is per week, so you can actually use the calculation. So for example, if it's £100 per week, you already know that 4 weeks is £400, right? Good. So they ask you to pay the deposit fee, which is 5 weeks rent, and then the 6 months rent upfront. However, if one of you have like employment, it is most likely that you don't get to pay the 6 months rent. Why? And that's simply because you are feeling that you have employment with this particular company. They reach out to that company, and the company needs to say, yes, this person works with us. This is how much, we actually agree that they earn up to this amount. Because again, depending on your salary threshold, there's some houses that you'll not be able to get. So for example, if you earn, say, like £20 below, it's going to be very difficult for you to get a house. That's just the honest truth, because some landlords want people who are earning from like £30,000 or say £27,000 and things like that, right? So, but if your partner, for example, has an employment, you can simply say, oh yeah, he works here, and then they check and it comes back. That means what they're simply trying to check is, okay, this person has an employment, they have a job, so it's not going to be difficult for them to pay this rent, because they don't want trouble, they don't want to have to chase you, right? So once that is done, you don't have to pay the 6 months rent, really. Now, I think another trick, babe, that we need to talk about is the thing about furnished and unfurnished apartments. Like, you need
really, really important, especially
you
when
really
you're
need to understand
when you're
that.
moving into the country for the first time. You don't want to be the guy who is running around looking for properties to buy or looking for properties to pick.
Especially if you don't have the budget.
Exactly. I don't think it's something you want to. So it's important to look out for furnished apartment. I think the good thing is that sometimes the prices are not exactly too varying. It's not too different from the unfurnished apartment. If you're able to check in the right places, you might see a furnished apartment for 1,200, and then you see a similar kind of apartment for just 1,000 or 1,100, but it's unfurnished. I strongly advise that you go for the furnished apartment, because one, it saves you time. Two, it is even more efficient, and then you just get to settle in easily.
Exactly. Right? So in our case, we were really blessed to like get our apartment came with literally everything. Like, we didn't need to buy anything, down to the spoons, cup, plates, iron, TV, couch, table, like name it, dining, everything came complete.
We just carried our bag.
and came in.
Airbnb personified.
Exactly.
And it's also important that you look out for energy ratings of the houses.
Oh,
I'm not really sure how that works, but I think the higher
Yeah.
the energy rating, like an A, B, C, D kind of
Yeah,
thing,
the
the
more
more
expensive
efficient
or efficient, yeah.
the house is in terms of power management, in terms of the kind of bulbs, energy saver bulbs. But I mean, you're going to see the rating. It's part of the requirement for every house listed on some of these sites to actually put out the energy rating. I think in our subsequent videos we're going to put out a video on how you can probably get a job, because you can see that getting a job is really important, because if you don't have a job, it might just be difficult or more expensive for you to get a house. You might need to pay higher deposit 6 months, 3 months, and that is actually a lot of money. Like 6 months, like, you know, if it's 1,002, that's over almost 7,000 pounds, babe. That's Egweji as well. Sorry, let me not go. Let me not go for that. You know.
Anywho, thanks, Break, for that. I think another thing worthy of mention is when you now eventually move into this apartment, guys, just make sure, first things first, that you look around, take a picture and video of everywhere.
Don't.
Because at that moment,
BC.
if, for example, there is a scratch on this chair and the agent did not mark it in their register, whatever, that there was a mark on that chair, it's you that did the mark. It can actually cause you to, they can. So remember we talked about deposit fee. Now I didn't mention what that deposit fee was for. That deposit fee is actually for, like, it actually protects the landlord. The money doesn't go to the landlord, it goes to some people called a deposit holding company or something. That's just their work, to hold deposit money. Now that money is to protect the landlord, so that if you spoil anything in the house, you're going to have to forfeit that money. And I'm talking down to painting. So meaning that when you're leaving the house, you have to keep everywhere clean, exactly the same way you met it. The painting, everything has to look sparkling clean, fresh, new, for the next person who is coming. And I sort of like that policy. I wish we can do that in Nigeria, really.
100%.
I sort of like it, so it's really brilliant. So the first thing you need to do is to ensure that when you get into the apartment, you look everywhere. Guys, when I mean everywhere, I mean even to the bolt that holds whatever. It's really, really important. The chairs, ensure that the chairs are stable, they are okay in case it's a furnished apartment. And even if it's not unfurnished, still look at everywhere. Ensure the heater is working, the cupboards and all those things, the bed. If you can even write it down, fine. When I came in, I didn't have to write anything down, but what I did was I literally did a video of everywhere, to the spoons, to the plates. I made a video counting them. This is a small spoon, it is 5. This one is 4. I did all of that and I kept it because that's. And then for the things that I saw, some of the things that I saw were broken. After the agent had left, immediately I took a picture of all of them.
Babe, how come you're not an accountant? How come you're not an accountant? Anyway.
I immediately took a picture of all of them and sent it to the property manager to say, I saw these things, they were like this, okay? Yeah. Please ensure that you mark it in your register that this is how it is.
Yeah.
So all those things, please do not play. If you have that attitude of I don't care attitude that most people have, like from back home, it's not going to work for you here. Almost everything here has to do with you being intentional. It's very, very important. Like if you miss it, get ready to pay some basic, really.
Yeah, you don't want to come here and start paying basic for anyone else. So I think it's important for you to do that check. And I think that's about it. Babe, is there any other thing?
So I think that's pretty much it. Just to do a very quick recap, we just said that it's really going to be easy for a single person, or one, if you're a couple, before bringing your wife or your wife and kids, or whoever has the street cred should come in first. It will be easier for your friend or anybody to house you than housing all of you with your wife and your children. It's just going to be easier to house one person, right?
Cool.
So you come in, give yourself max. I mean, if you're very serious, in the space of 1 month, you should be able to find a house. and even including any sort of work that you want to find, regardless of whatever kind of work it is. Maybe not the tier A jobs, but maybe the B's and C's, you just may be able to find something for yourself. But the most important thing is having a roof over your head first. And we said that there is actually a process, and you need to be aware that you have to pay a holding fee, a deposit fee, and a 6 months rent, particularly upfront, particularly because you do not have a rent history. All right. So, and please remember, unemployment, and the employment has to be like a job that pays you, like, say, 27, 30 and above pounds per annum, right? And please note that the moment you get into your house, there are certain bills that you need to begin to prepare for. Things like water, lights, that's energy. Some people say gas, internet, phone bill, TV license, council tax. These are the things.
Bills. But I think the good news is that sometimes, your rent can come with...
Not every house, and not everybody is that lucky.
And you don't need to negotiate that, because, that will make you sound greedy. Just ask if your rent covers any of the bills.
The information is usually always
open there.
It's always open.
It does actually have bills inclusive. But I mean, this is not to scare you guys, because I think it's something that anybody who is determined and has planned, probably can actually achieve easily within a month. Just make sure that you are aware, and this gives you an edge so that your planning is better. Right?
So, and then we also mentioned that it's always good for you to actually look for homes, houses that are like fully furnished. If you see a house that's fully furnished and maybe includes the bill, that's lovely. But if you don't see, just try to find out, ways that you can actually, work around it really. If you see it, that's perfect. Take it, right? So I think that's pretty much it on how you can actually get a house in the UK without having to. And we just have to do this because we see so many people, so many Nigerians making a lot of mistakes.
Right?
Exactly. So we just said, we got to do this video based on our experience. We were really blessed to get a house that was fully furnished and includes most of our bills. Another important thing I want to even say is that some people always say, for example, things like, I want to live in London, I want to live in Manchester, I want to live in Birmingham. Not bad. But however, you also need to know the cost implications of living in highbrow, choice areas like that. So maybe if you want to live in Manchester, Birmingham, or London, maybe you're looking at maybe the low-end places. But, typically, I'd rather not live in such low-end places. I'd rather live maybe in a place outside of London, but in a choice area in that. I don't know if you get my point. Very important. So for example, we too wanted to stay in London, but the rent we were seeing, Chima, I'm like, babe, are you sure you want us to pay this money?
No, not at all. I'm not the one who's gonna throw out an unnecessary pound. Because he go love on a naira. Sorry.
My dear,
let's not change it for you.
That was how we just said.
This particular video is a very cool, calm video. We're just being very professional.
That's how we just said, let us just go and look for a place outside London, close to London. So we literally live like 1 hour away from London, but in a very amazing place. Like in a very beautiful place, right? So please bear that in mind, that you can actually, we can always go to London whenever we want to go to. We don't have to live there, to experience the place, So we hope that these
very
few
important
points
I think just to add before you leave, I think it's also important to also do a background check, your research on the area you want to live in the UK. If you have friends, you can call them to ask. I think we actually benefited a lot from family and friends that were here, because there were certain places that we were not sure, but we were just mentioning and looking for houses there, and and people were like, that guy, like this, so boss Debam boys are in the UK.
You say
Debam.
They say go to Peckham.
Let me stop pecking. Don't peck her yet.
Don't peck anybody.
Don't peck anybody. Anyway, but these are all cool places
to all
compared
those who live in Peckham,
to some other places. I think those places are cool compared to some places in Nigeria. But if you're living to have a decent place, I think you can always get decent choices. I think there was this house we went to check out, and I was on the phone when my wife went out to check, and I was like, babe, is this Oshodi under bridge?
In London.
See you in our next video, ladies and gentlemen. Take care. Bye.